Here it is from 1957. It's a Gibson Les Paul TV model. This is not a Les Paul Jr., but I'll have to talk more on that in just a little bit. It's structurally exactly the same, but according to Gibson, this is not a Junior. But anyway, I'm so excited to have this guitar. I bought this from my friend Jacob. Jacob lived down in Florida, and he told me the story is that this was his grandmother's guitar originally. And it was passed down through his family. He inherited it about 10 years ago. He and I are about the same age, in their mid-30s. And he was a guitar player at the time, but he didn't really care much for this guitar. He kind of thought, oh, it looks like a student model. Didn't think that much of it. And then he reached out to me, and I started telling him what it was. I was like, this is more than just a single pickup, Gibson guitar. This is from the introduction of the solid body and has so much history around it, and it's not a Les Paul Jr., basically. So anyway, I was thrilled to be able to buy it, and it's exactly the type of guitars that I like to buy, and exactly the type of condition. He said that it had been in his closet for 10 years, and the condition of the guitar reflected that point perfectly. And he told me the story is that his relative didn't really play it much either. No one really spent much time playing this guitar, and the condition of the frets seemed to confirm that. No divots or anything. In fact, when it came in, it still had these strings on it. So these are the Gibson flat wound strings from the late 50s or early to mid 60s. You can see they've got the orange silk wraps. I have a ton of string boxes with unused strings like this in it. But these strings were on the guitar when it came in, and all the buttons were cracked off. And that's what happens on these buttons, on the Kluson tuners from the late 1950s up until about the 60s, is that whatever plastic they use just kind of shrinks and rots and hardens, and when the tuners get tough to adjust, they just kind of crack off. So it still had these flat wound strings on it. It did not have any buttons on it, but otherwise exactly as you see here, just with a little more dirt on it. And that's how I like to find them. Exactly out of the closet, unmodified, unmessed with, and what we try to do is just present the guitars exactly the way the manufacturer intended. So we did have these replacement buttons installed. These are still the original tuners here. You see they're single line Klusons. So these are kind of aged white buttons, but the machines themselves are still the original machines. And then since I don't really enjoy playing 12 gauge flat wound strings, I do go back with 10 gauge round wound, but I like to keep the original strings just because, it's just a cool piece of history. So yeah, it's set up so perfectly. In fact, while Matthew was going through it earlier today, we noticed when we took the truss rod cover off that the black paint completely covered the nut because it had never been adjusted before. And when I saw it, I was so excited. that happens so rarely. I've probably had 3 guitars in 10 years that had never had their truss rod nut adjusted. And so we tried not to adjust it, but it had heavy gauge flat wounds on it for 50 years or so. And so it was sitting at about 10 thousandths relief, and we like about 4 or 5 thousandths on a Les Paul. So we did adjust the rod, but I photographed it first, so if you want to see what that looks like, I'll post that on the listing. But yeah, so it's properly adjusted rod, lubricated nut, and it'll do whatever you want. You can zero it out if you want to, or you can go to 12 thousandths. Your call. We clean the electronics and set it up. It's just so beautiful. So a perfect playing example, and a super hot sounding P90. I was listening to Riggs play it through that Tweed Super earlier, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It's going to be awesome. But anyway, so why is this not a Les Paul Jr.? Well, the Les Paul Jr. came out in 1954. The TV model came out in 55, and they're identical in every way, except for the TV model has the what Gibson called limed oak or limed mahogany, and the Junior has the sunburst finish. But not only that, the silkscreen is different because the model name is different. Gibson had them in 2 different pages of the catalog because they're different models. It's not like it was like Les Paul Jr. in sunburst or limed mahogany. It was Les Paul Jr. here, next page, Les Paul TV model. Because they're different models, these were usually on the same page as the specials at the time. So not only that, but one of my favorite books is this one here by Robb Lawrence. It's the Les Paul Legacy, 1915 to 63. If you're a Gibson, electric nerd, then this is the book for you. Go look for one of these. But they talk about why they called it the TV model. You've probably heard, one of the main stories is that that if they were to make this bright white, then it would have exceeded the dynamic range of the cameras at the time. And it's very possible that that was the reason. But that's not written down anywhere by Gibson. In fact, what Robb kind of posits here is he's kind of quoting Les Paul and asking him why did they call it the TV model. He said that he and Mary Ford had a TV show in 1954 to 1958, and they would have these TV spots 5 times throughout the show, and it was sponsored by like Listerine and stuff. But basically, they were trying to fill out the range of Les Pauls. They wanted everything from the Volkswagen to the Rolls-Royce. So they had the Junior at the bottom and the Custom at the top, and a couple different levels. So this was one step up. This would have been level 2 from the Junior. And they called it the TV model because it's the one he debuted on TV. Or at least that's kind of what he seems to indicate in that quote. The other thing that a lot of people say is that it was basically a marketing stunt. Let's say you're a kid in the 1950s and you see these hot guitar players on TV, and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to be a great guitar player and I want to play on TV, so I might as well get the TV model. You can pick whichever story you like. Those all kind of make sense. Gibson never made it easy on us by writing it down somewhere in any of the catalogs. But I'd be happy to be wrong on that. So if you find that out there, if you find some like definitive data from Gibson that is written down in a catalog, not what someone just mentioned, I'd love to know it. Leave it in the comments below. So anyway, this is the 57 Les Paul TV model, exactly the type of guitars I like to buy. Called in my friend Riggs to play it for us, show us how it sounds through a 1955 Fender Super Amp, not the Super Reverb, the Super Amp, 210s, original Jensens, just a fantastic sounding amplifier. So here's how it sounds. So that's the 1957 Gibson Les Paul TV model. Thanks so much, Riggs, for playing it for us and showing us how it sounds through that Fender Super Amp. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, I wanted to show you guys this book. This is the Gibson Shipment Totals 1937 and 1979. It's out of print, but you can pick one up probably on eBay or somewhere. But it does a great job showing why this is not a Les Paul Jr. That's because the shipment totals are listed differently. There's one section for the TV and there's one section for the Junior. And if you kind of total up the shipment totals in the 1950s, there were about 1/10 of the Les Paul TV models in comparison to the amount of Juniors that were made during the same time period. So it's just rare and cool, and funny how they never really wrote down why they called it the TV model. But anyway, lastly, I'll leave you one last thing, is that when you think about the TV model, you see a kind of a yellow blonde color solid body electric guitar with no neck pitch, and then you see a black pick guard, a single pickup, and if we think about where that may have come from, that would have been the Fender Esquire in 1950. Yellow guitar, black pickguard, single pickup, no neck pitch. Isn't that interesting? It's almost as if Gibson was aware of the success of that guitar. So anyway, my name is John. My shop's called True Vintage Guitar. We're here in Birmingham, Alabama. We're in the shop right now. If you're close by, you're welcome to book an appointment. You can come by and check out some of the guitars we have. I'm always looking to buy nice vintage guitars that have just come out of the closet, unmodified, totally original guitars. Happy to pay fair market prices for those. So there's a link down in the description if you want to reach out to me. Be happy to chat with you, talk values and that sort of thing. Or if you're not close by, you're welcome to check out everything at truevintageguitar.com. This one may or may not be currently listed for sale. If it is sold, then it will be marked as such. But there's going to be a link in the description if you want to check out the listing. And thanks so much for watching.